Okay, item number 5 on today's agenda is Third Street Bridge Task Order Agreement for Design and Construction Management. Kevin's charged the table to tell us all about it.
Wow.
Thank you. Well, last September, this past September, we put out a request for qualifications for a design firm to perform the design and construction inspection on our Third Street Bridge project. We selected Keller Associates. There were 5 firms that submitted their qualifications. We selected Keller. We negotiated a task order agreement for surveying, which they have already begun on, and this task order agreement number 4 here that you have today is for design and for construction inspection. So it's in the amount of $122,000, $122,880. About half of that is design and about half of that is for construction inspection. We're hoping actually to reduce the amount needed for construction inspection and supplement with our own forces. We're going to have to see how that goes with our other responsibilities, but we're trying to keep this as low cost as possible and within budget. So this agreement would complete the design by late spring, I believe, for bidding and construction during low water this coming summer.
Okay. Earlier today, Councilman Steed sent a message to Mr. McDonald, who I see is here, and I wonder if he could address the concerns about the cost there, just for the record, so what he might think about why this project seems to be somewhat more expensive than comparable ones we're seeing in the county.
Yeah, good afternoon. The email, and I did actually just respond to the copy to Gary, but a couple of things within that. One of the items he mentioned in the email was that he thought that it was stated in the conversation last week at Transportation Commission that the $580,000 budget included the corridor work, and that is not the case. It is just the bridge. So first clarification. Excuse me. The other item that's in there, he talked about using a precast concrete arch and having the supplier provide all the design services for that. Similar to what was constructed by the North Latah County Highway District up in Viola a couple of years ago. That is one of the bridge types that we are considering. One of the items for tasks within this task order is an assessment of available bridge types to determine which is the most viable in this location, whether it's based on cost, impacts, environmental impacts in terms of what we are constructing around the creek, availability, those types of things, floodplain management, all of that. It may very well be that a precast bridge is that one that we end up with. There are other options. But the thing to keep in mind is that a precast bridge supplier, typically they will provide the design for the substructure. That's the foundations, the arch, the wing walls leading into it. They do not normally provide the superstructure construction or design. That would be the road, the sidewalks, the guardrails, the handrails, the approaches, all those kind of things. So the intent here is to start with an assessment, and then depending on which type we end up with, there will be a design services piece that we will need to perform through our consultant to then complete the overall design and get it ready for advertisement.
Okay, thank you for addressing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say to Les, he also, at the Transportation Commission meeting, went into great detail actually about the corridor and the process of the bridge, and that it was a separate entity to what was the bridge. So, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me it's a much more, because of how deep it is into the floodplain and how much of the city is behind the bridge that could be flooded, if you will. And if it did, if you put in a structure there that does back up water, it's going to have more effect there than it would, say, out on the other end of Mountain View. So there may be a little more engineering has to go along with that. it seems to
Well,
me.
and as part of it, they are doing a hydraulic assessment of the channel to make sure that we do not create adverse conditions for floodwater or flood situations. We have to have a certain amount of clearance between the 100-year flood and the base of the bridge, and make sure that we're not causing a rise in the overall water levels. And so that's part of this as well, that hydraulic modeling and hydraulic assessment to then help us select the appropriate bridge type.
Yeah, I think we definitely don't want to create something that backs up water in people's houses.
Exactly.
Gina.
I want to go back to Kevin's statement earlier, if I can, please. Tell me how, you mentioned something about cutting costs somehow through this process. Will you help a non-engineer understand that, please?
Yes, depending on the type of structure that we end up with, what we'd like to do is this agreement is on a time and materials basis. So we tell them, we don't need you for this, we don't get billed for that.
Awesome.
So that as much as possible of the inspection work, we're going to try to do that and say, let's look at these things. I think we can handle this, this, and this. We need you here on Tuesday for this.
Perfect.
Just to keep, this is kind of a all-inclusive, well, it's still part-time on their part, but we're hoping to minimize the cash output.
Okay, that sounds great.
Oh,
Thank you.
can I say one other
Please,
thing?
please.
Related to the cost as a percent of the project, I believe Walter is normally looking at 20 to 25%, and that was his concern. But this is, a bridge project. A significant portion of their work is going to be the hydrologic and hydraulic study, which we wouldn't have on a roadway project. So it's quite a detailed analysis, and they end up with a water surface level for a given return period of storm in order to set the bridge at a height that the water would be able to pass.
Over it. Okay.
So a minor thing that I notice is that as you go through the line item thing, in the project meetings, the first meeting would be billed at $1,505, and then the pre-construction meeting is $1,540. I wonder why. Do they have better snacks at the?
I think there was a thing about licorice and after dinner mints.
I wonder how they arbitrarily assign the numbers to the cost of a meeting.
I don't know that.
Could be different staff
Yes, I
attending
was
the
going to
meeting.
think staff is who's
Yeah, and
joining.
some of those are quite
It's
detailed.
licorice.
It's totally licorice.
Okay, that's all.
Right on.
No further questions, Your Honor.